now that you've mentioned the president, let's talk about that mandate, that objective. It said build a sports economy. Was it a realistic one?
Of course, it's a realistic one. It's happening all over the world. We have left it a very long time. We didn't take this course in the country to say this is what we want to achieve. This is what we want to do with our sport. We have just been doing it as a social aspect, just from top to bottom. Everybody's just doing it. Nobody is taking it very, very seriously. That look, this sport is beyond just the game. It's beyond just the activities of the sport. It's much more than that. It's an economy of itself. It's some platform that you can provide jobs, can provide activity, the value chain that you have along the line within the sport industry. So if you start looking at it that way, then you start taking it very, 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 very seriously. The people here where we are, for example, in UK, if you take their football, how many profit they are declaring from their clubs? Not much. There is billions, some of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars in revenues, but how much profit are they declaring? But they're not seeing it that way. They see it as such that how many jobs this club is creating, what is the contribution to the GDP, the economy, and everything like that. So sport is about wealth distribution. It's a huge economy. The value chain of the businesses around sports, they feed around sports. The businesses that sustain themselves within sports are animals. So if the president says, look, let's start looking at our sport on that aspect also and see it that way. So it's making sports a fundamental key factor of the economy. When they are talking economy, sports should be sitting there. When they are talking security, sports should be sitting there, because you use sports to also distract the youth and get them focused instead of doing the bad things. So sports also, if it's working well, increase the security of the nation. When they are taking labor issues, sports should be there, because sports increase productivity. When people are happy with their sports team, they go to work better, they produce better, economy benefit better. So, when so many things that happens, if sports is working, when they are taking agriculture, even sports should be there.
Yeah. So when Arsenal fans go to work now,
I don't know. and the report shows that even if your sport team is not doing well, if you go to work, you perform, because you are angry, you want to deliver the work.
Yeah, show them how to do it.
If they do well, you also do that. So it's quite, the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is very bold, he's very visionary. He does things thinking about the future, not just today. And he believes that with the restructuring of the sports this way, with the kind of support sports is getting, in a couple of years, if we're able to achieve what we want to achieve, to be one of the biggest employers of labor, the biggest in the industry, we have all that potentials, we have all that capabilities. And imagine the kind of PR the sports is giving the country. For example, our sportsmen all over the world dominating. So if we say we want to buy that kind of PR, for example, OKON have given Nigeria now in Turkey. Do you know how many billions we can spend to do that? Some years back, Turkey are not.
I know.
Visa restrictions, this. But OKON went to Turkey, everything changes. 2 days ago, I saw him even have an audience with the president of Turkey.
Wow.
World sports that can do that for you, break all kind of lines for you, and put your country in a very positive light that you can now take it to build to going forward.
And where do you think we can start building the sports economy? Have you made progress in any way?
Yeah, of course we are making progress across all platforms. It's about having a proper vision. When we get the mandate, we sat down and said, okay, what do you do? Because you can't work without a plan. So we had a plan that we call Renewed Hope Initiative for Nigerian Sports Economy. We're renewing the hope of people to getting that done. And how do you want to deliver that? We said that's what we call the 3 R's. That's the pillars that the reform is being arrested, being benchmarked. The 3 R's means, number one, we have to reset. Secondly, we have to refocus. Thirdly, we have to relaunch. What do you mean by resetting? So we have to change the way we do things, Because for many years, we've been just more concerned about participating in tournaments, the Olympics, the World Cup, to the detriment of the domestic system. So we are more focused on that. Nobody cares about what we have in the domestic system. You can go and gather people from anywhere in the world and take them to a competition. How does that impact on the economy? How does that create value? You create the sports economy by having a proper domestic sports industry.
That's right.
Domestic competitions across all sports do that. We say we have to go there. So we have now been able to tell people, look, let's move this focus about international competition and everything. Doesn't mean we're not going to participate. We'll participate, but it's not a priority.
That's right.
But because they have to go pari passu. As we're building the domestic, we have to find a way to participate. So we ask all the federations, everybody has to now have a proper domestic structure, proper leagues, proper stuff like that. And we even told them that before you can support you to go to participate in the international competitions, show what you are doing domestically. So if you get the domestic industry working, putting the right investment, putting the right support together and working, that's the first foundation to get the sports economy going. And let me give you an example. If you come to UK now, when last did the UK, England won any big tournament at the Football World Cup? 1966. But they have managed to build the best domestic football league in the world. That have dwarfed every other league. Every player in the world wants to come to play in the Premier League, right? So because it's the industry for them. They're not seeing it as about just going to win the World Cup. They win fine, they don't win. They come back tomorrow and continue their domestic football and count the economy around it. So that's what we said we should do. We have to reset that our thinking to do that. And we are really getting the support in that. Yes, well, pari passu, we are also building the national competition. If you look at all our federations that have traveled abroad recently to participate in certain competitions, they're all coming out with medals because the focus is trained well domestically, and then you can go abroad. Secondly, we have to refocus what we are doing, which means we have to be intentional and deliberate. Whatever we want to do, we have to do it the right way. Whatever necessary enablers that is needed to put in place, legislation, investment, infrastructure, everything needs to be put in place so that you can jumpstart this system. Sports cannot grow without the economy to do that. And also, it's a long list of that. And thirdly, we say we have to launch our sports. We have to make the sports look positive. Look okay. Remove all the toxic issues out of it so that we can get the private sector to come around with it. No private sector want to put their money where there's toxic elements there, there are toxic vibes there. They want to put their money where they can get their brand will get value addition. Not to put their money where their brand will get damaged. So we have to make the sports look positive from the way we conduct ourselves, the way we act, the way we do everything. Has to be positivity, has to be everywhere. So that is basically what we say we are running and to get to economy. And we said to the first thing that we do as a government, what do we do? The government took the first step, so they are putting the investment needed. At least it doesn't mean it's enough, no, but the government will show the way. If the government started up, then the private sector will follow. So we said we will put the investment into the budget of sports 2025 is quite heavy, targeted more on the infrastructure basis. That we can provide the infrastructure needed, provide the rehabilitation of the infrastructures and whatever we need to do. Secondly, declare sports like sports as a national asset. If sports is a national asset, meaning it's supposed to have all the support and all the legislation and all the enablers, whatever is needed to make sport better will be done by the government to do that. And we now have a clear understanding, okay, how do you deliver that? Because when you have this vision, how do you deliver it? We have three projected objectives in delivering this. Number one, we have to restructure the commission itself, bring more professionals, bring more experts, support what we have on ground to make us be working more private sector based. Secondly, we have to bring a lot of private sector to come and complement whatever government is doing. Thirdly, we have to restructure the federations to make them more active. Because the federations the sport federations are like the operating officers of the sports. If they succeed, we succeed. They fail, we fail. Because we just provide like the guidance, legislation, and regulatory.
And have we made progress with that restructuring?
They are the ones that have to deliver the sport actually on the level. So they have to also be more professional. So we are working to restructure that as well. And then thirdly, we have to work on the grassroots sports also. Well, grassroots sports is the enabler where the talent conveyor.
That's right.
So we have to work on the grassroots sports, which is based on school sports. We are all working on that. And then finally, on the reform document, we now said, okay, what is the final outcome that we are expected to achieve? Number one, sports should be a key contributor to the economy. We say we target at least sports should be at least 3% of GDP in the long term as we are working. Should be very high on contributing to GDP. Secondly, sports should contribute at least 3 million jobs across the country, across both direct, indirect, and induced, the value chain and everything as the target. Thirdly, we should be at least contributing at least 5% to 10% of the global talent market. Because 200 million people, if we train our people well, we can send them all over the world to dominate sports. You go to America today, NFL, this, that, all the leagues, all football, all over Europe, you see Nigerians everywhere. So we should be producing those talents across all sports that can also dominate the world and be earning revenues. So those foreign exchange that they are earning will come back to Nigeria to be invested in sport, in their families, in the business, in the economy, to do that. And fourthly, sport is also a social aspect. You can't take that out of it.
That's right.
And in Nigeria, there's nothing that binds us together as one people,
True.
as one group, as one destiny like sports. Once sports is involved, nobody cares who you are, what you are doing, and stuff like that. So we should also reinforce that, because sports break all our fault lines and make us more focused to deliver on that. Recently, concluded National Sport Festival showed that all the athletes that are competing are not from this particular state. Everybody compete for any state.
That's right.
So, and you can see somebody from the state challenge somebody, doesn't care whether the person,
somebody competing against the state to win a medal for another state.
That's it. So that's what sports does for us to do that. So this is a vision, and this is what we are now putting together gradually, step by step, everywhere we want to do it. Legislation, we are working on it.
Sounds good.
The revenues, we are working on it. Private sector, we are working on it. And so it's looking very good. And if we stabilize and we continue on this trajectory, the outcome and the positive outcome is quite assured.